Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. Something I like to look at a couple times a year is the performance of set boxes versus draft boxes for expansions that have had both. It's somewhat of a ongoing lighthearted debate that we have on this channel. I have what I think is probably the minority view that in the long term set boxes will do better based on the cards in them, the fact that there are more rares, more mythics in a set box than a draft box, plus there's the list slot, and WotC continues to load more value into set boxes in terms of other variants and cards that just aren't available in draft boxes. On the other side, people think that the draft experience premium long term will be the thing that elevates draft boxes above set boxes, essentially the ability for people to crack a draft box and instantly relive that limited environment from that expansion. And so once in a while, I like to update this table, make another video about twice a year on how this is actually going. And this may be the first update where I think we are approaching some good data. So let me kind of go through all of this and we'll talk about what it means and what conclusions we might be able to draw. So first off, I have all of the expansions up through Brothers War that had both set boxes and draft boxes. I haven't put Phyrexia on there yet, but there's a good reason for that I'll get to in a moment. Now, the first assumption of this analysis is that you bought the boxes on release day. Yes, I know maybe we could make an argument that the day a set goes out of print is the day we should use, or the midpoint between the release day and the out of print day. There are a lot of things you could make arguments for. You have to pick something. So I've chosen the release date. Release date is what I use for all of my CAGR calculations when I do things like long-term appreciation of Pokemon products, long-term performance of Magic products, things like that. I always just use the release date to be consistent. I think it's an okay way to get a very conservative number. So then for draft boxes, I have used the original draft box wholesale price, and likewise with set boxes, the original set box wholesale price. And I know there's always somebody out there who claims they bought a case of set boxes for $10 off a crackhead on Facebook Marketplace who stole them from someone. Yeah, I'm sure that happens once in a while, but like I always say, we actually live at the average. We don't live 5 sigma out to the right on the bell curve. We live at the average, so we need to make assumptions. We need to do analyses at the average. We need to be reasonable. And wholesale price, again, you can make some good arguments to not use wholesale price. You might want to use 10% above wholesale price. Your mileage may vary. Make your own assumptions if you disagree with these and replicate it and see what you come up with at your answers for your answers. So then for today's prices, I've just taken the current market prices off of TCG Player. And yes, I know TCG Player is not always the cheapest place. Sometimes they're cheaper than eBay. Sometimes third parties will be cheaper. Sometimes Rudy is cheaper. Sometimes other services are cheaper. You know, you have to take something to be consistent with. And in terms of being a good place to get a lot of easy data that is of actual sales, TCG market price is pretty high quality. So that's why I use those numbers. Now, I do the compound annual growth rate calculation of draft boxes from assuming you were buying them at wholesale on release day. And then today, when I'm doing this update, what is the market price? And I've taken these data on March 18th, 2023. So the compound annual growth rate, the great thing about this calculation is that it normalizes for time and it normalizes for initial costs or basis cost. So it doesn't matter what you paid for the thing initially. It doesn't matter when you bought them. Compound annual growth rate gives you a apples for apples comparison between investments, regardless of how long the investment has taken and at what price it was initially at or finally at. It normalizes for all that stuff. And it just gives you a single number that compares the investment. That's why I like compound annual growth rate. And so what we'll see in this column here is I've just set the formatting. If it's had a positive appreciation, to make it green, and if it's had a negative appreciation or a depreciation, set it to red. And compound annual growth rate gets weird on short timelines. And so you can have these weird things that some people may not understand initially. And I'll go through this one to explain it real quick. So Brothers War wholesale draft box price is about $95. And the current market price today is about 102, but this says 24%. So this is not simply how much has it appreciated. It's actually only appreciated about 5% from $95 to $102. But it's done that in only 4 months. And so what compound annual growth rate means is that if it kept appreciating at this same rate that it's appreciated from 95 to 102, but it did it for an entire 365.25 days, then it would have appreciated in total 24.2%. Okay, that's what compound annual growth rate means. But what that causes is on short timelines of measurement, the numbers get crazy. No one really thinks Brothers War is like some monster of a set where the set boxes have appreciated 37% and the draft box is 24. It's only because the set so far has only been out for 4 months. A year from now, I expect that these Brothers War prices for the draft boxes and the set boxes, the market prices, I bet they'll be about the same that they are today because it's a standard set. But a year from now, the time in between the release date and what will then be the present will be longer. And so these CAGR numbers will be more reasonable and make more sense. And so as we come down this column, since these sets are listed in order of release date, as we come down this column, the numbers themselves can get just a little wonkier every step down the column because of the way CAGR works, and that on short timelines, it kind of becomes silly. Now, other things, I made the list of caveats here. Other things to point out. We only have a small number of expansions to work with, yes. Only a brief period of out-of-print time. And I would really only put any amount of stock in these sets that are out of print. So I've highlighted them in blue here because if it's in print, hey, you can still find, another shipment from the printers. There could still be way more coming out of WotC's warehouse. It's just there's so much more uncertainty when a set is still in print about what it's going to do long term. The out-of-print periods so far, even for these 4, have been relatively brief. They were all officially, unofficially out of print in May of 22, so only 10 months ago. And in that time, we've had the cruel summer, we've had the magic bear market, we've had wider economic uncertainty and a soft economy. And so all of those will essentially hurt all of these prices in ways that a normally healthy functioning market wouldn't have. I don't want anyone to come away from this analysis today thinking this is how it's going to be long term, because there's still a lot of uncertainty in the market. There's a lot of uncertainty about what the long-term prices will do, but we can at least start getting a snapshot now that we're 10 months out of print with some of these sets. Number 5, there will not be a single winner. I do not expect that every set box will outperform the same expansion's draft box all the time. I also don't expect the opposite. There will be some sets where you expect either set boxes to win hands down or draft boxes to win hands down. A good example of this is Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate draft boxes are performing right now a lot better than the set boxes. They were the same cost at wholesale. I went back and I checked my distributor pricing, and yes, they were the same cost originally at wholesale last year. And the reason that the Baldur's Gate draft boxes do so much better is a draft pack had 20 cards, and only 2 of those slots were printed to Oblivion legendary cards. But in the set packs, it had 15 cards, and 4 out of those 15 were legendaries or basic lands. So basically about 27% of the cards in the set box were worthless, and only about 10% of the cards in the draft box were worthless. There are very few of those legendary cards that are holding any value today. So that's an example of where I would expect long-term the Baldur's Gate draft boxes will always perform better than the Baldur's Gate set boxes. And last, possible long-term effects that aren't in play yet. What I really mean by this is advocates for draft boxes being better in the long run will cite the draft experience premium. And again, that ability to crack open a box and pull the draft packs out, have a draft at the kitchen table with friends, and kind of relive that limited environment. If that is going to become an effect, we probably haven't seen it yet, simply because these sets have only been out of print for 10 months. And so there probably aren't a lot of people who just yet are saying, hey bro, Why don't we go break a Zendikar Rising box and go relive that? Instead, they're thinking back years previous to that. And so the draft experience premium, if it does manifest into a real driver of long-term appreciation of draft boxes over set boxes, it may take years before we see that in these data. So keep that in mind. Now, overall, the results I've just put in this column, which of the two is appreciating better. So which compound annual growth rate is higher, the set box or the draft box? And then how much is it higher by? So on this one, for instance, where the draft box is higher, the 2.5 is how much the draft box is higher than the set box, as opposed to these where it's how much the set box is higher than the draft box. So, so far with these 4 sets that are actually out of print, we have kind of mixed results. We have 1 draft box, 3 set boxes. If you added all of this together, you just kind of blindly add up CAGRs, which you can't really just add CAGRs. You need to do a adjustment for time periods. But if you just kind of blindly added them, you'd get about 10% is the total lead of set boxes over draft boxes. But again, I want to caution people, these are kind of immature analyses. We need more time. I would like to see a recovery in the Magic market. I would like to see us get into a Magic bull market where people are much more likely to be buying up these older boxes. Just yesterday, I posted on the community tab that WotC was dumping Strixhaven boxes on Amazon. So just yesterday, we had more of these boxes flooding out, distorting the market, messing things up. And so right now, it does appear set boxes are doing better, but I would caution anyone against making long-term TCG investment decisions based on this analysis today. But I definitely wanted to get this snapshot taken, put it up on YouTube, have something we can reference in the future, and we can see where these results manifesting themselves back here in March of 2023, or was this a red herring and we were fooled by the data we were seeing from this distorted market in this time period? Let me know what you think, other ideas, things I'm missing. If you have any good arguments for why we should use a different date for the analysis here, different prices for here, or even a different price here, though that's probably my strongest assumption. If you have any good arguments for that, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear them, and maybe you could help me make this analysis higher quality. Otherwise, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join me on Final Trade. Thanks a lot.